Hey, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Lakers for Thursday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. LeBron James said on Wednesday he is unwilling to play out the last years of his career playing meaningless basketball where he can't compete for a title. Also, the Lakers lost in Miami. That's next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where or when you get your podcasts. This one right here is always free. It's never going to be behind a paywall. And you can always find it Locked On Lakers at YouTube, a fast-growing, fast-expanding channel there, getting near 10,000 subscribers. Great community of Lakers fans who tend to be very angry these days, but still polite to each other, if nothing else, if not necessarily polite to Rob Pelinka. And that's fine. You don't have to be polite to him. So there are times, Andy, when people make too much of LeBron James and, is he subtweeting someone here? Is this passive aggressive code signaling there? And it's just a thing to get, the morning talk shows, give them something to chat about. I mean, Wednesday in Miami, LeBron got kind of introspective, a little bit deep, and all the stuff he said was highly relevant and very important. And we're going to talk about it throughout today's show. Do want to mention the game itself because the Lakers are playing for their playoff lives. Really,
I was going to say they're playing for something.
They're playing for the opportunity to make their games meaningful in March.
Yeah.
Even if vaguely meaningful. Meaningful for any team other than New Orleans. And they lost, which wasn't really expected, but it was, man, they turned the ball over an awful lot, Andy. The game was lost on turnovers and offensive rebounds. Stop me if you've heard that one before.
Yeah, in this particular game, they turned the ball over 26 times, which led to 31 points for Miami. Miami only had 6 turnovers. You and I were talking about this before we started the show, Brian. I don't remember. You and I have seen a lot of basketball games over our career. I don't remember ever seeing a turnover discrepancy that wide.
-20?
Like
-20. I don't know.
That's shocking. And, that played a big role in Miami having 52 points in the paint. They had 15 more possessions, 92 versus 77. You can't have that. And you mentioned the rebounding. They had 10 offensive rebounds that led to 19 second and frankly, third chance points during this game. It was the Lakers did a good job against Orlando, making up for that lack of size against an unusually big team. But this time around, they just were not nearly as successful. Miami, frankly, is not even a good team on the offensive glass, and they crushed the Lakers in this one.
Well, and you could see a lot of it was, okay, you're smaller, the Lakers can only play so many big lineups, and Thomas Bryant wasn't his best game. The Lakers have limited options, but a lot of it, and Darvin Ham talked about this after the game, is, are you putting a body on someone? Are you assuming they showed a couple highlights after the game on Spectrum Sportsnet of, Wenyen Gabriel looking for Bam Adebayo and Russell Westbrook just kind of standing. Like, sometimes you need 2 guys to put a body on somebody, particularly somebody like Adebayo, who is so active and so athletic at that size. And they just didn't. And
you mentioned Russ, he's coming off a 13 rebound triple-double against Orlando. He did not have a rebound in the first half, which is stunning for Russell Westbrook, but indicative of what you're talking about.
And I think you can chalk some of this up to fatigue. LeBron throughout the game was gassed. I mean, he just looked really tired, particularly as the Lakers kind of made a fourth quarter push. LeBron,
there's a couple things about that push I want to get into.
Yeah, me too. LeBron, put up good numbers. There was nothing wrong with his statistical output. 27 points, 10 of 18 shooting. Did make 2 of his 5 3-pointers. 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 6 turnovers. Obviously part of the problem, not part of the solution there. But 33 and a half minutes, he looked in the fourth quarter like he was real tired. And that to me, to be honest with you, I mean, I think a lot of guys were. That to me is like one of the most disappointing things about these types of games where the Lakers make these big pushes. They only allowed 17 points in the fourth quarter, and they made it so they competitive enough that they had to keep trying. I think they got to within 5 points with a pretty good amount of time left, 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. Couldn't score for the rest of it. They use up a lot of energy from James in games like this to fall short. And there is not a finite amount of that throughout the year. So that to me was one of the more disappointing aspects of this guy. I would have rather they lost this game by 35.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that fourth quarter. Juan Toscano-Anderson got some run in the second half, and I believe played the entire fourth quarter. He was spectacular. Yes. He had 7 rebounds in 13 minutes, 3 on the offensive glass. He kept a lot of possessions alive for the Lakers just through pure incredible effort. And, he talked after the game about, he's just going to control the things that he can control in terms of, trying to stay healthy or also just gaining Darvin Ham's trust. But he's somebody that brings something to the table in terms of defensive, switchability and versatility. And he mentioned also paying attention to the small things like the details. And that's something really important for the Lakers. If for however long they're going to be staving off this period without Anthony Davis, the little things are going to mean a lot. They are often going to have to be the smarter, more detail-oriented team, beyond the hustle required, beyond the execution. Like they're just going to have to really pay attention to the details. So I thought it was interesting that JTA brought that up. I also thought it was interesting, too, that in the fourth quarter when the Lakers got back into this thing, it was really in a lot of ways behind JTA's effort and hustle and smart play, but also Troy Brown getting really hot from behind the arc. And he eventually got subbed out for Patrick Beverley. And I'm not saying this is what cost the Lakers the game, because ultimately I don't think they had the energy or execution to keep that rally going. I wish, though, that Darvin had just stuck with what was working as opposed to, at times, what seems to be familiar with him in terms of trust.
Yeah. I mean, the offense, Troy,
if for no other reason than it builds up a lot of Troy Brown's confidence.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
It was one of these things where, like, Brown was 4 for 5 for 3-point range. And by the way, this to me is one of the fascinating and tricky things. You mentioned JTA. Like one of the biggest benefits of having him around is, like, it adds a little optionality. It gives you another potential decent player to plug in for 18 minutes a night.
Some length, as LeBron pointed out after the game, and we've been crying for the last few weeks.
But it's so hard from night to night to find the right balance when, if you kind of squint, there's, Pat Beverley, 2 of 5 from 3-point range, overall relatively quiet, but the decent 3-point shooting and 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Good night for Troy Brown shooting the ball. All of a sudden he's kind of back on track or whatever it is. But the offense as a whole in the fourth quarter was terrible. It was only, they were still turning the ball over. They only scored 20 points. And, as a group, it wasn't terribly effective. And so this gets to one of the major flaws of this team is it's whack-a-mole. It's plugging holes in the dam, whatever you want to say. It's like, okay, you start to get 1 or 2 guys kind of moving in the right direction. Then you look and you're like, wait a minute, Lonnie Walker didn't score. Austin Reaves played his worst.
Austin Reaves didn't just play.
But like Lonnie Walker didn't score, and Austin Reaves played his worst game as a pro.
He played one of the worst games anybody has played as a Laker this season. I mean, it was
terrible.
He was unplayable. in this game,
and didn't in part by his standards play very much. He only played 20 minutes, which is not, is below norms. It's like the Lakers need everyone, kind of like it was in Orlando to some degree, working. Like they need all the parts to, and if that was something that could happen all the time, and this gets into Darvin's choice tree, and why I'm relatively sympathetic compared to some Lakers fans, at least. It's really hard to line those things up. And a guy can have 4 decent minutes and quickly revert back to what they were. Like, it is so hard to get all of these things to line up right. And even if they do, he's still going to have to press a lot of buttons properly again, night to night. The overall team, he was shooting the ball well. The team was not functioning well. So making a change in what the team was doing, I thought was reasonable.
Well, they were functioning. They were functioning better though during that period with him in. And again, just to going back to sort of what feels familiar in a lot of ways, or clearly he trusts Patrick Beverley. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even looking to debate whether he should or shouldn't. But we've talked about this before, not just with Darvin, but coaches in general. They are often the same creatures of habit that the athletes that they coach are. And again, this did not cost the Lakers the game. I don't think they were going to be able to pull this thing off anyway. I'm just saying from a process standpoint, and also, again, the yearning for just as much length as possible standpoint, I would have liked to have seen him just keep what was rolling. That's it. I'm not. Yeah, I'm putting this on Darvin.
It was rolling. It was certainly rolling defensively in the fourth quarter for the Lakers. It was not rolling offensively, and so I will say this to your point, and where I think you are exactly right. And Darvin, as any first-year head coach, you kind of would expect him to. The team has no margin for error. The roster has no margin for error. They constantly have to maximize imperfect players, like to have chances of winning. The same applies to the coaching staff. The normal margin for error about, did you call a timeout here to give your guys a breather with a couple minutes left in the game, obviously tired, how do you, those kind of, like the ability for Darvin to be off by 5% or 10% or be 80% good in his choices, the 20% that he's not, hurt the Lakers more than it would hurt Milwaukee.
That is true.
And so I think you're right in that regard. It's not like Darvin is infallible here. And the impact of his mistakes or
just choices,
not just choice. If he chooses the third best option out of 5 instead of the second or the first, it's going to cost him. He doesn't even have to be the worst idea.
True.
So it's a tough position to be in. And, he's learning a constantly shifting roster as a first-year head coach. Let's get to LeBron. The stuff he was talking about after the game as his 38th birthday approaches on December 30th. Tons of fascinating stuff, which I'm sure will bleed into Friday's show. But man, was that post-game press conference filled with stuff, and we'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by Rocket Money. Are you wasting money on subscriptions? If so, you are not alone. 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. Maybe it's an unused Amazon Prime account. So there's this great app that I use that helps me keep track of expenses. And because of that, I don't waste any more money on subscriptions that I never use. And you may have heard of it before. It's used to be known as Truebill. It's now Rocket Money. And this app shows you all of your subscriptions in one place, cancels what you don't want anymore. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions you had no idea you were still paying for, like Napster or something like that. You may find out you've been double charged for a subscription. Think about 2 Napster charges. That would be awful. Just to cancel a subscription, all you have to do, just press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Seriously, it could save you hundreds of dollars per year. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
So, not surprising, Andy, the next time the Lakers media sees LeBron James will be December 30th. After the game in Atlanta, he will have turned 38 at that point. And so, a lot of like, hey, let's take stock. And LeBron was asked in a couple different ways and mentioned a couple different times that he is not interested in playing games just to play. He is not interested in playing to put up numbers. He knows what he can contribute to a championship caliber team with the right pieces around him.
Yeah.
That is pretty, not a direct quote. I'm not reading it, but
I can actually read some direct quotes. Part of what he said was, I don't want to finish my career playing at this level from a team aspect. I still want to be able to compete for a championship because I know what I still bring to a ball club with the right pieces. And then later said, I'm a winner and I want to win. And it's important to point out too that LeBron did not have to answer these questions this way. Like, he was not directly asked, does it upset you in year 20 that you are playing for a team that is now 7 games below 500? What do you make of that as you're in your 20th season? Like, he was not set up specifically to get into this territory.
Mm-hmm.
He opened the door and said, I'm here. This is what we're going to talk about. And, LeBron is great at talking about what he wants to talk about at any given moment.
And you know what else he didn't say, Andy? He didn't say, I know what I can bring to a championship team with the right people around me. I and all these things, comma, and I know that we can do that with the Lakers. I know that that's where none of that. None of it was a lot of, you'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. He didn't say Rob Pelinka sucks. he didn't like throw a bomb into the front office, but he gave them no votes of confidence either. And so first of all, he's correct. He is still playing at a high enough level that with the right supporting cast, LeBron James can be the centerpiece or a centerpiece of a championship caliber team.
Yes.
He's, averaging 28, 8, and 8 or whatever it is this year, shooting now 50%. The numbers are there. The performance is there. He's not quite superhuman anymore, but he's pretty super. So he's not wrong. I think would you agree with me there? Like, from an evaluative standpoint of his own performance, he is not wrong. He is still an elite level player.
No, I think the devil is in the details in terms of pecking order and things like that. The quote, whose team is it question. We've seen this year, and LeBron has even acknowledged this. AD has to be the primary guy. And LeBron is not in a place right now, this is something we've talked about before, where you can just put anybody around him, and having him there, by virtue of his presence, you've solved 90 to 95% of your problem. Like LeBron James used to be the equivalent of domino mother bleeper, like, in terms of just, he's on your team. You're going to win a lot. You've got that, trump card just because he's there. He's not that guy anymore, which is not a knock on LeBron. Nobody's supposed to be that guy at age 38. Like, that's not a knock or anything, but that's reality.
And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure how many of those guys there really still are in what is turning into an incredible, Luka Doncic is as productive as any human being can possibly be on a basketball court. The Mavs are barely above 500.
Dude,
Jokic,
he had
Jokic has more. What was it, 60-20? And
he had like 60-20, 10-ish triple-double, and it took overtime to beat the Knicks with that production.
Right.
Everybody needs help.
Right. Jokic, is an alien in terms of what he can do. I think the league now is at a place where the level of skill and talent is so high that the whole notion of one guy just making your team good, I don't think that applies even anymore. And if it is, it's maybe to one or two guys, maybe.
I think in a lot of ways, it's always been. You and I covered some of Kobe's peak seasons, like 2006, the year that in retrospect, he should have won MVP, not Steve Nash. That was the year that he scored 35 points per game. Like, that year, Kobe had to play at that level. And we saw all of these games, a lot of them live. He was exceptional. Like, it was one of the best seasons anybody's ever going to have. That was to keep the Lakers at, I believe, a 6 seed. Like, he had to do that.
Which, by the way, sounds great now.
It really does. You don't know what you got until
6 seed.
But you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody, I don't care how incredible you are, everybody needs help. But LeBron used to require
less. He required less. He requires a little bit more now.
Can he be a central part of a championship team? Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And what I thought was fascinating about this is, like, there will be a moment in the offseason where the Lakers have to decide, can we go back into this with Anthony Davis and LeBron James as the core components of this team? We'll see if we can supplement stuff. Maybe we can make it better. Maybe we can trade Russ for something. Maybe we can use
real quick
salary cap space.
Real quick correction. Kobe had to play at that level that year so the Lakers could be a 7 seed.
Playing team.
I'm just saying, like, and again, Kobe was not human that year.
Mm-hmm.
That was the year of 81 and like the string of 50-point games. He was insane.
Yeah, where, like, when it's over and he scores 36, you're like, what was wrong with Kobe tonight? A little off.
Kobe, what happened during this game?
Why have you suddenly hit the wall?
What was this defense doing that they could hold you to 35?
But, like,
your average.
The Lakers have to decide whether or not how they respond to it is a separate podcast or week of them. But they'll have to at least start making this. Do we think we can build a championship team with Anthony Davis and LeBron James as the core? But they're not going to be the only people who are trying to make these sorts of evaluations. LeBron James damn well is going to go into the offseason going, can this brain trust, and go check out our Twitter feed for a great picture of it.
Yes. Shout out to Ralph Mason. You outdid yourself with some wonderfully janky Photoshop. At Cam Brothers.
Just at Cam Brothers. Go look at it. Can they, and it wouldn't surprise me if he says, I'd like to go play somewhere else now. And the Lakers, that, and we don't have to unpack it here, like what you get, but that then opens up what I think will be one of the most amazing conversations in the NBA. What do you get in a trade for 38-year-old LeBron James, basically on a walk-year contract? Like, I have no idea. Can you rebuild with that?
This is also, though, I mean, we're obviously going to keep talking about this, and, LeBron very clearly messaging to the organization, to the entire league, beyond the brain trust issues and, how much you really trust Rob Pelinka and the Ramby and, Joey Buss, Jesse Buss, Jeannie, like everybody putting their heads together, everybody who matters putting their heads together and trying to solve this thing. There's also the question of AD and the lack of availability. And if you cannot get AD on the court, hold this
thought, because what you're talking about is something that we had actually in our notes for yesterday's show that was noted by almost too many people on the YouTube page to name. And so, like, this is something that was, go back and read the comments for, I guess that would be Wednesday show, if I'm doing the math right. And this is a point that a lot of Lakers fans were making. The problem with the Lakers isn't not just LeBron. The problem is AD, and so many roots of this that all affect what the future of LeBron is start with Anthony Davis. So we'll talk about that next.
All right. So you're hanging out with some friends, putting back a few drinks, a few becomes a few too many. And as the evening comes to an end, people start to head out. You think of calling for a ride, but then you're like, nah, I live nearby. I can make it home okay. It's not a big deal. And I mean, what are the odds I'm going to get pulled over? And even if I did, what is the worst that could happen? My insurance goes up a bit. I lose my license. Because of that, I lose my job. I total my car. I injure someone else, I kill someone else. Like, you can see where this goes from here. Everybody knows about the risks of drunk driving. The results are tragic. They're often deadly, but that doesn't stop people from getting behind the wheel while they're under the influence. And that's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead, get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or somebody else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Okay, so in this comment from Robert Dickerson II on the YouTube page is not the only he's not the only person who made this point, but I think he says it well. He starts with this. I find it hilarious that everyone will blame everything under the sun except the actual problem with the Lakers being bad. It's not Westbrook, it's not LeBron, nor Genie, nor Rob, nor Ham, nor Vogel. The issue that shines brighter than the sun itself, yet many would choose to close their eyes. Blah, 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 da, da, da. Anthony Davis is your problem. It's not even close. He is both the problem and the solution. But because he can't solve his own injury woes, he can't be the solution. This team, nor any team, can't build around a superstar that is always hurt. Yes, the roster construction was not great, but despite that, we were turning a corner until AD got hurt. I feel sorry for the man, but it is what it is. He's just a lot more fragile than other players. It's hard to argue with anything in that. I mean,
No.
LeBron has some responsibility. Westbrook was a terrible idea, despite the fact that he's probably the leading candidate now to win Sixth Man of the Year.
No, not for a sub 500 team. He ain't gonna win.
Well, I'm just saying, but like he might not. But
might be a betting favorite right now, but he ain't gonna win.
He is the current betting favorite in the most literal sense.
Hang on to your money, suckers.
Right, and it is not. It's not a. It's a weird year for that, but that's not.
Oh, sure.
Genie has responsibility. Rob has tons of it. Ham and Vogel have, but he's correct. And if you are building around a superstar who isn't going to be there for the vast majority of your games, particularly if the rest of it is as flawed as the Lakers have been, it's one thing if you have a Spurs at their peak kind of organization, Milwaukee now, just, name Miami, just name off the, 7 or 8 best run franchises in the league. Okay, maybe you can kind of get by and patch the holes. And the Lakers have the Anthony Davis problem, which is compounded by all their other stuff that they can't seem to do right. And Robert nails it, I think, with that comment. And it's not personal. It's not an attack on AD, but it is what it is.
No, I mean, this is something I know I brought up, I want to say last week on a show. Saying that Anthony Davis is injury prone is not a slight at his character. I'm not saying that he is mentally soft. I'm not saying that he has this incredibly low pain tolerance. I'm not saying that he doesn't want it bad enough. I'm not saying he's a bad teammate, anything like that. I know Anthony Davis wants to be out there. I know that he is a competitor. His body does not react well to either certain types of contact or injury. It does not recover the same way. Some people are really good healers. LeBron, up until the last few years, frankly, since he's been with the Lakers. But LeBron has always been a very fast healer. Kobe, for all of the mythology and some of it self-perpetuated about playing through everything and, having the ability to, turn an ankle, it swells up the size of a softball and he'd go out there next game. Like, yes, Kobe had an incredible pain tolerance. He's the toughest athlete I've ever been around, bar none. Kobe's body, though, was built in a way where it would cooperate beyond the other stuff that Kobe brought to the table in terms of pain tolerance and mental toughness. Because we saw what happened once Kobe's body stopped cooperating. Kobe did not become any less mentally tough at that point. His body stopped cooperating. LeBron is no less mentally tough than he was before he joined the Lakers. His body is starting to cooperate less. Anthony Davis, unfortunately, has a body that has always had a cooperation issue. But it's not a character flaw. It's not character assassination.
No, it's not. And we'll talk about this a lot when we talk about sort of LeBron putting that 38 in perspective and where he is. Well, again, we'll probably get into a lot of this for Friday's show
on his birthday.
But happy birthday to him. And so, but like, somebody noted in the post game that was asking him a question. You averaged 30 points a game as a 20-year-old. The next time you did it for all of his scoring or whatever was last year, age 37. That requires, and he takes care of his body, and he now $1 million putting in your body doesn't seem like, but like at the time, people were like, LeBron spends $1 million a year on his body, and like all this, like, there's something genetic about the way LeBron is sewn together, the way the muscles attached to the tendons, attached to the bone, and don't at me. I'm not a doctor. I'm not sure I'm doing that right, but you get the point that other guys don't have. And, Brandon Roy was mentally tough. He wanted it. He was a supremely talented player. Genetically, his knees were all bleeped up, and he could. Andrew Bynum had that weird bow-legged thing that they knew when they drafted him, and like, this guy's a time bomb, and it eventually blew up.
Yeah,
it is a wholly unnatural thing what these guys are doing. In the same way that when baseball players like blow out their elbows, like what they're doing, like if you can find a guy who can do like Nolan Ryan and pitch without ever getting hurt, that guy is a freak. They are the exception to the rule. And so part of what LeBron will be doing this offseason, especially if things continue the way that they are currently trending, it's not over yet, but it's not just, do I have confidence in Rob? Do I believe they can build a winning team around me? It's, do I have confidence in Anthony Davis, that Anthony Davis can be here and present enough, as Robert points out in that comment on YouTube? Can he be present enough for me to win? And if the answer is no, I love you, man. I wish you the best. I am so glad we had that title year together. I need to go somewhere else. If LeBron asks out, if LeBron makes it clear he'd like to go play for a contender, and the Lakers can't do that for him, build one for him next year, there is zero reason to hang on to Anthony Davis. The problem is, again, separate show, not what you're trading both those guys at relative low points in their value.
Unless you think you can find stars that will be available more than AD, that can hold down the fort during the periods where he's not there. Though it's going to be hard to find guys as good as AD.
Yeah, and a couple people did note this in the trade. Like, what if the use of those draft picks this offseason is in sweetening an Anthony Davis deal to make it, you give back us a star, and we'll give you AD, but we'll also give you these picks as sort of insurance against his health. I thought that was interesting. Again, all stuff we'll talk about in other podcasts, but this post game, mark your calendars, December, 28th? I'm not good at days of the month.
28th.
December 28th was a post game with LeBron and the Lakers that I think, at least, not in a flame throwing kind of way, not in a bomb throwing, but will be a meaningful turning point in the conversation about LeBron and his future in LA. It was mature, and it wasn't angry, and it was all that. But LeBron laid out what, if he's going to keep playing basketball, why. And maybe you see something that I don't, Andy, but I don't see the Lakers being able to provide LeBron with the things he's talking about in his golden years.
They're not well set up for it.
They're not well set up for it. And the people who are running things are not the people that you would say could pull the rabbit out of a hat. Anyway, Locked On Lakers on YouTube, Andy, is where you go to see the show, to watch us deliver it, and to join a really vibrant community of people. And, like we saw today, become part of the show, as Robert was with his really well thought out comment. We'll see what happens in Atlanta on Friday, and then it's on to Charlotte. See everybody next time.